thank you very much, Walter, for those kind words, and also everybody for attending the talk. And hopefully, will be something interesting and will stimulate some discussion. And I sent my physics colleagues an email. One of them showed up, besides my students, and said, come and watch me make a fool of myself in front of biologists and philosophers. So anyway, I'm very happy to receive any kind of criticism or, oh, 2, 3, 4, wow, increasing. So I take that back. So 4 of my colleagues. So please don't hold back, and I very much want to be educated. So my title of my talk is Can Life Be Explained by Physics? And subtitle, A Physicist's View of the Reductionism versus Holism Debate. And this little picture down here kind of shows the two sides of biology, I guess. The side where physicists maybe cannot say a whole lot about it, which are, animals and plants and their complete complexity and their behavior and all that kind of stuff. But then there's another side of biology where physicists may be able to say something about, which maybe about molecular biology and those kind of things. So here's the prehistory. How did I even get the idea to give this talk? Part of it is that I'm involved in this new program, Biomedical Physics, and I teach this biophysics course, of which many students are here. And the course is all about applying physics to biology, but does it really make sense? If you read some philosophy, they say biology has no place. Physics has no place in biology, and they're separated things, and how can you even? Then I remember a while back I would talk to the social science faculty, and it seemed to me that there was a kind of tendency to try to emphasize holism over reductionism as if reductionism is something bad. And I was thinking, well, that's strange because we do physics, that's reductionist science, if you want. So why would it be something bad? So there seems to be. So I was thinking, is there maybe a misunderstanding of how science works outside of science, or maybe scientists misunderstand how science works. Maybe we're so involved in it that we don't really understand what we're doing. I don't know, but so that's kind of the motivation. Just definitions. I think everybody here knows what reductionism and holism are, but I just want to make sure that these are the definitions that I came up with. I didn't look them up. I just wrote them down. So reductionism, I guess, would be the idea that the full understanding of a system or a phenomenon involves breaking it down to smaller parts. So here the emphasis is on analysis, or analyzing a situation. That's reductionism. Holism is the idea that a full understanding can be gained by looking at the system as a whole, without necessarily breaking it down to parts. And that emphasizes more like certain non-reducible or emergent properties of a system, and that is an emphasis on synthesis of putting things back together again, if you want. So is there really necessarily a contradiction between these two, which we sometimes hear, and that's what I really want to talk about. There's certain romanticism about holism, I think, throughout history, and I will go through a little bit through the history. So here's a famous poem by William Wordsworth. Sweet is the lore which nature brings. I could completely agree with that, right? That's why I'm a scientist. And then it gets bad from there. Our meddling intellect misshapes the beauteous forms of things. We murder to dissect. Okay? Enough of science and of art. Close up those barren leaves. Come forth and bring with you a heart that watches and receives. So we should feel nature in our heart, but we should not really dissect it and think about it and analyze it or anything like that, because that murders everything, So that's kind of the romantic view of supposedly what science is. Thus, culminating in Frankenstein, right? That's the idea. So they're taking apart and putting back together, and of course you cannot make a real human being that way. I want to use two earnests here, so there's nothing important about being earnest, but there's two earnests I just want to use as kind of role models for the different views. So Ernest Rutherford, he was a very blunt individual, I guess, with some of his sayings, so I'm just going to use some of his sayings. And then we have Ernst Mayr, which is a very famous evolutionary biologist, who wrote a lot of books about the philosophy and the history of biology. He was a very anti-reductionist kind of person, so I use a lot of his quotes. And it's just to notice by study that they're both Ernsts. So one is Ernst, which is German, but close enough, right? So here's Ernest Rutherford of some of his very blunt statements. If your experiment needs statistics, you ought to have done a better experiment. Second one, all science is either physics or stamp collecting. These are obviously rather uninformed statements about science, right? But I know that a lot of our physics students like this one. I've seen it on the board. But I think it comes from the time when, before evolution and before physiology, a lot of biology was basically natural history. And it was, saying like, oh, there's this and these animals live in South America, and those animals live in North America, and you tabulate all of them, and you do, So it seemed like stamp collecting to some people. But by the time Ernest Rutherford made his statements, that was very far off the mark. So this is kind of like the ugly reductionist right here. That's what we're talking about. Now, how serious if we take Ernest Rutherford's statements besides his physics, which was obviously very good? He discovered the nucleus and all this kind of stuff. Well, here's another statement of this, which has nothing to do with reductionist holism, but tells you how far off the mark you can be. Anybody who expects source of power from the transformation of the atom is talking moonshine. Oops. So let's do the other Ernst, right? So here's Ernst Mayr. It is ironic that the physicalists, so when he talks about physicalists, he actually talks historically, talking about the 19th century physicists, attack the vitalists, which were the people who invoked like a vital force to explain life, for invoking an unanalyzed vital force, and yet in their own explanation they use such equally unanalyzed factors as energy and movements, which really struck me as amazing. It's like I never realized, as a physicist, that energy and movements are unanalyzed. The definitions of life formulated by the physicalists often consider utterly vacuous statements. Then a little bit later, movements unless directed are random, like Brownian motion. Something has to give direction to this movement. This their vitalist opponents had always emphasized. So his point was like, so he's a great writer. If you want to learn about evolution, there's almost no better person to read than Ernst Mayr. Fantastic. But he has this basic flaw. He just basically hated physicists, for some reason. So I think it's a bit unfair. So here's another statement. He said, to the best of my knowledge, none of the great discoveries made by physics in the 20th century has contributed anything to an understanding of the living world. Can you believe this? Let's see, X-ray diffraction. That's Rosalind Franklin, her famous X-ray picture that led to the discovery of double helix structure of DNA. Nanotechnology, of course, how the motor proteins work. Quantum tunneling, which is important for photosynthesis, the sense of smell. Quantum prediction, which gives, mechanics gives you the structure of molecules. So to say that none of these discoveries of physics have anything to do with biology is really a bit heavy, And so he says a little bit later, a comprehensive overview of molecularity requires a competence I do not have. So he admits that he just leaves that out. Molecular biology is not part of what he considers biology. So we have these two extremes. We have Rutherford who says ridiculous things, and we have, in my opinion, both of them are really intelligent people. Right? Rutherford won the Nobel Prize, blah blah. This was one of the most famous biologists of modern times ever, and they say these things, right? And you wonder why, what's going on here. So looking at history, you discover that holism, in some sense, and reductionism, of course, they have different guises, they have different names, kind of change sides as you go through history a little bit. That's maybe my own view, maybe you can challenge this. Prehistory, people believed in animism, they believed everything has a soul, right? The rocks have a soul, the mountain has a soul, and it's a kind of a holism thing. Everything is one big system, everything is a soul, and that's it, right? So it's really an ancient Greece, and this is a completely Western perspective. I know my graduate student Venkatesh is going to challenge me on that. What about India? So I have no clue about this stuff. So I have to stick to what I know. So we're going completely with Western kind of philosophy.